Chapter 1 The Fragment. Rayquaza was up there before anyone looked up. It was already circling the thin, cold edge of the sky. Hundreds of millions of years, the Pokédex says, in the ozone layer above the clouds, where it cannot be seen from the ground. Long before there was a single person below to wonder what lived past the weather. For almost the whole of that time, no one knew it was real. On the rare day it crossed the high sky, people saw only a green streak moving too fast and called it what it looked like. Its flying form looks like a meteor. They made a wish on it and looked away. But this is not, in the end, a story about the dragon. It is a story about the people who looked up first, who saw the green streak and understood what it was, and who then spent thousands of years preparing for the day it would have to come down again. It is a story about what they were willing to pay to call it. And it ends with a girl who was born to die saying its name. This is a record the games left unfinished. Chapter 2 The Three. To understand why anyone would build a religion around a creature in the sky, you have to start beneath it with the two things it watches. Long before recorded time, the world held two other ancient powers. One was Groudon, who is not merely a creature of the land, but, in the oldest lore, the maker of it, the raiser of continents, who carries the heat of the planet's own core. The other was Kyogre, who is the sea in the same way, the one who called down the rain and filled the ocean basins. Apart, they are the reason there is dry ground to stand on and water to cross. But a chance meeting, the lore says, turned them from forces into rivals, and they began a war for dominance over the world they had built between them. It was not a war of armies, it was a war of climate. Where Groudon walked, the land swelled, and the sun scorched everything to drought. Where Kyogre moved, the sea climbed and the rain did not stop. Two titans pulling the world in opposite directions, and a planet caught in the middle, drowning on one horizon and burning on the other. And then, the legend says, it descended. What happened next is usually told as a battle, but the games hide the real mechanism in plain sight, in a single line of Rayquaza's stat sheet. Its ability is called Airlock, and the description is 4 flat words: eliminates the effects of weather. Read that again with the myth in mind. Groudon's drought and Kyogre's endless rain are not ordinary storms. They are the weather. And the moment Rayquaza enters the sky above them, the weather simply ends. Not fought, not won, cancelled. The way a held breath ends a shout. That is what Rayquaza did over the world. It did not outmuscle the land and the sea. It rose between them, and its mere presence switched off the catastrophe they were generating. And in the sudden, ringing quiet, the two of them had nothing left to throw. In the games that tell it most directly, this came to a head above Sutopolis, a town built inside the crater of an old volcano, ringed completely by cliffs, so that its people live at the bottom of a stone bowl with only a circle of sky overhead. They looked up from the floor of the world and watched their god descend into the one patch of heaven they could see. The Titans retreated. They were sealed away to sleep. Kyogre into a cavern beneath the sea, Groudon into the dark beneath the earth, and Rayquaza climbed back into the ozone and vanished as if none of it had happened. The people who witnessed that quiet never forgot it. They could not. They had just watched the end of the world get called off by something that then refused to be seen again. So they decided to remember it for everyone. Chapter 3: The Tower and the Wish. They were called the Draconids, and they organized their entire existence around a single act of memory. To them, Rayquaza was not a Pokémon. It was a god, the Dragon God, and they were the ones who had seen it work. So they built it a tower. The sky pillar still stands, a narrow spire reaching up toward the lair where the dragon lives, raised for one purpose: to be the place from which it could be summoned. And they covered the inside of it with murals, the whole story, painted on stone, so that no generation could lose the shape of what had happened, or forget that it might happen again. Some of the knowledge they kept deeper still, at Meteor Falls, a cavern where fragments of fallen sky had been collecting since the beginning of the world. The same meteoric stone the dragon itself feeds on, glowing faintly in the dark of the earth. It was before that light, the lore says, that the wish was meant to be offered. Because that was the unbearable part of their knowledge. The Draconids did not only remember the past, they had foreseen the future, and the future they saw was another sky falling, not the land and the sea this time, but a thing from beyond the world, a meteor on its way down across a gap of thousands of years. They knew it was coming, the way we know an eclipse is coming, and they knew there was exactly one thing in existence that could stop it. So they appointed a keeper. Among every Draconid generation, one person carried the title of Lore Keeper, and the Lore Keeper held one sacred duty above all others: to remember perfectly how to call the dragon down when the sky finally broke. Not the legend of it, the method, the exact ritual. And the ritual is the most quietly extraordinary thing in the whole record. The Lore Keeper would stand before a stone that shone with rainbow light and offer the dragon a wish. And in answer to that wish, the lore states it plainly, Rayquaza's body would fill with light, and it would transform, and it would become something even greater than itself. We have a name for that now. We call it Mega Evolution, and trainers treat it as a battle technique, a stone and a bracelet and a flash of power in a stadium. But the games are explicit about where it came from. Mega Evolution started with Rayquaza. The first time any creature in this world ever burned brighter than its own limit, it was not a champion's trick. It was a prayer. A single person standing before a glowing stone at the foot of a tower, asking a god in the sky to please this once become strong enough to save them. The Draconids enjoyed 1,000 years of peace. They spent all of it getting ready for a day that not one of them, across all those generations, expected to live to see. Chapter 4: The Price. Here is the part the games let you walk past if you are not listening. The meteor would not stop itself, and the dragon could not be aimed from the ground. To destroy the falling thing, someone had to ride Rayquaza up to meet it. Not just into the high sky, but past it, into space, to the edge where the dragon could throw its full power into the dark. And the Draconids had always known what that meant for the rider. Because of where Rayquaza lives and what it is, the dragon constantly gives off ozone, and in the thin air of space, that ozone is poison. The atmosphere it has protected for hundreds of millions of years is the very thing that makes its back uninhabitable to anyone who climbs onto it. So the plan the Draconids preserved for 1,000 years was never simply summon the dragon and save the world. Read it cold, and it is this. The Lorekeeper rides the dragon to the top of the sky, points it at the falling world, and does not come back. The breath of the thing that saves everyone is the thing that kills the one who steers it. There is a bitter symmetry in it. The ozone layer is what shields every living thing below from the worst of what the sun throws down. It is, in a literal sense, the world's own protection. And the dragon that patrols it is so saturated in that same protective poison that to ride it is to press your face against the shield itself and die of it. The creature keeps everything alive at arm's length and harms whatever comes close enough to touch. The Salvation had a seat in it for exactly one person, and that seat was a grave. And in the darker account, the one the manga tells, where the games only murmur, the person born to sit in it had a name. She was a girl. She was the chosen Lorekeeper of her generation, the one the prophecy pointed to, the one who would ride Rayquaza into the dark and shatter the meteor at the cost of her own life. Her name was Aster. She did not grow up afraid of monsters. She grew up knowing she was one half of a transaction, that somewhere above the clouds there was a god, and that one day she would climb onto its back and trade her single life for every other one. She was raised gently by people who loved her to be the price. Chapter 5. The Reckoning. She never made it to the meteor. In the darker telling, Aster died before her day came, killed in the chaos when others who did not understand what the dragon was for tried to seize Rayquaza for themselves and use it as a weapon. The girl who was meant to give her life saving the world had it taken from her instead for nothing before the sky had even begun to fall. And the duty did not die with her. It could not. So it passed to the person who had loved her most, and who was now the last Lorekeeper left. Zinnia. Everything you need to understand about grief is in what Zinnia did next. She found a small, soft creature, a whismer, a thing that does almost nothing but tremble and cry, and she named it Aster. She let it travel with her. She spoke to it the way you speak to a child, and the little creature, in its small voice, took to calling her Mama, a grown woman, the keeper of an ancient and lethal knowledge, walking toward the end of the world with a stand-in for a dead girl tucked against her side, answering to a name that was not quite hers. Consider what a whismer actually is. The Pokédex describes it as a creature that, once startled into crying, will shriek continuously until it drops from exhaustion. Because it breathes through its ear canals, it never has to pause to inhale. Its wailing is a perpetual, unbroken loop of distress. It is the literal, biological embodiment of a grief that cannot catch its breath. And this is the creature Zinnia chose to carry Aster's name, Zinnia, who smiles with sharp teeth, who battles with feral manic energy, who laughs loudly while standing on the lip of the apocalypse, carries a small, trembling creature of infinite weeping pressed against her ribs. She outsources her mourning to the Pokémon, letting the Whismur hold the terror she is not allowed to feel while she sets about the cold business of orchestrating her own death. When she wears the Lorekeeper's tattered cape, she is not wearing a hero's mantle. She is wearing a burial shroud, passed down from one ghost to the next, smelling of ozone and inevitability. And Zinnia did not only wait and pray, she did something colder and far more dangerous to force the dragon's hand. She slipped in among the very people scrambling to seize the ancient titans for power, went undercover, fed them what they needed to find and wake the land and the sea, gambling that if she could provoke Groudon and Kyogre into stirring again, the disturbance would pull Rayquaza down out of the ozone the way it always had. She was willing to risk reawakening one catastrophe in order to summon the only thing that could rehearse stopping a worse one. It is not a clean kind of faith. It is the kind that is run out of time. Because Zinnia now carried the worst version of the duty. The meteor was real, and it was coming, and the prophecy's chosen rider was in the ground, which meant that if the dragon was to be ridden up to die, the one who would have to climb onto its back, the one who would have to finish what Aster was born to finish, might well be Zinnia herself. And then the world offered her a way out, and watching her refuse it is the whole point. Others had found a cleverer answer. They had built a device, a dimensional shifter, that could simply warp the meteor away, fold it out of this world entirely. No dragon, no ritual, no grave in the sky. A clean, painless rescue. Except that the meteor would not be destroyed. It would only be moved, sent across the boundary into another world, to fall on another sky, over people who had done nothing and been warned of nothing. The device did not cancel the catastrophe. It readdressed the envelope. Zinnia would not have it. She had Aster, the small one, the trembling stand-in for the dead, steal the device and crush it. Her world's survival would not be bought with another world's ruin. If the price had to be paid, it would be paid here, by the people who had spent 1,000 years agreeing to pay it, the old and terrible way. A wish before a glowing stone, a dragon called down out of the ozone, and a Lorekeeper climbing onto its back to die facing the dark. Held to the light, even this changes. We file Rayquaza among the strongest creatures ever made, an invincible god of the sky, and it is. But the legend of the invincible god, read closely, is not really the story of a dragon that saved the world over and over. It is the story of a long line of human beings who agreed, in advance, to be killed by the thing that saved it. The dragon never sacrificed anything. It descended, it canceled the storm, it shattered the stone, and it went home to the sky, unchanged. Every act of sacrifice in the entire myth belonged to the small, breakable people at the foot of the tower. Chapter 6. The Open File. And then, in the games we actually played, a child walks in and rewrites the ending. A trainer arrives at the Sky Pillar, and Zinnia, at the last possible moment, does not climb onto the dragon. In her final act, as the last lore keeper of a people who have done nothing for 1,000 years but prepare for this, she does something her ancestors never could. She teaches the dragon a single move, Dragon Ascent. The one move that lets it touch space, the move no other creature in the world can learn. And then she steps back and hands the whole inheritance to a kid in a borrowed suit. A suit that does the one thing no draconid body was ever able to do up there: keep its wearer alive. There is a staggering, almost agonizing cruelty hidden inside this technological miracle. For a millennium, generations of draconid elders sat around fires and wept for the daughters they knew would have to suffocate in the dark. They built an entire culture around the sanctity of this sacrificial death, believing the atmosphere's poison was the toll the dragon god demanded. And then, a corporate tech company in Rustboro City simply stitched together a pressurized suit out of synthetic polymers. It turns out Rayquaza never required a human life. The universe did not demand a blood price to balance the scales of survival. The draconids simply lacked a breathing apparatus, and they mistook a biological vulnerability for a divine mandate. All those centuries of quiet terror, the agonizing grooming of children for the slaughter, the crushing weight of the lore keeper's mantle, all of it could have been solved by a sealed helmet and an oxygen tank. Aster died under the weight of a mystical necessity that was, in reality, just an engineering problem waiting to be solved. When Zinnia sees the child step into that suit, she is not just witnessing the salvation of the world. She is watching the sudden, retroactive revelation that her entire people's generational trauma was utterly unnecessary. It is almost too much to sit with. The thing the draconids built a religion around, the grave that Aster was raised to fill, that Zinnia walked toward carrying a Whismer that called her Mama. The lethal seat that 1,000 years of lore keepers accepted as their destiny. And a child rides up in a pressure suit, breathes fine the whole way, and comes home. The dragon climbs, past the clouds, past the weather it was born to police, past the blue and into the black. The one creature in all of these games shown leaving the world entirely to defend it. And out at the edge, it does what it was always going to do. It throws its full, accumulated power at the falling meteor. Power it carries in its own body, the swallowed stone of every shard it has eaten across hundreds of millions of years. Which is why, alone among all the world's creatures, it needs no megastone to transform. It has been charging itself on the sky since before there was a sky to charge on. And the meteor breaks. And from the wreckage of the broken sky, something alive uncoils. A triangular shape, drifting, then snapping open into a creature that was never from here at all. Deoxys, an alien folded into the heart of the stone. Even the thing that fell was carrying a passenger. Even the empty dark was not empty. It is worth noticing what that makes Rayquaza across the whole of its existence. It eats meteors. It lives on the debris that drifts toward the world, swallowing the sky's incoming wreckage as ordinary food. The day the great meteor came, it simply did, at terrible scale, what it has done quietly every day for hundreds of millions of years. It stood at the boundary between the world and everything outside it, and ate what tried to come through. The guardian of the sky was never only standing between us and the land and the sea below. It was standing between the whole world and what lies past the sky, and the alien curled inside the stone was just the one fragment that nearly made it through. Then the child comes down. The dragon turns and climbs back into the ozone layer, unbothered, exactly as it has after every catastrophe since before our species existed. And Zinnia, freed for the first time in her life from being a key shaped to fit one single door, leaves a short note, hands over a keepsake, and walks off to find out who a person is when they are no longer a weapon held in reserve against the end of the world. Her grandmother's advice to her is almost unbearable in its smallness after everything. Now go and find your own purpose. Rayquaza was up there before anyone looked up. It will be up there after. It does not know our names, and it never needed our tower, our murals, our prophecy, or our dead. It would have descended on its own the next time the land and the sea forgot themselves, because in hundreds of millions of years it has never once done anything else. But the part worth remembering was never the dragons. It was the people who looked up first and built their whole short lives around the moment it would come down, who loved a girl they raised to be a sacrifice and grieved her, and then refused at the end to make anyone else's world pay for the safety of their own. The dragon kept the sky from falling. Someone had to be willing to ride it. The file stays open.